Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Healy for Beginners and Beyond for Thursday, September 7th, 2023. I'm your host for the day, Jake Barron, Head of Operations for the Americas here at Healy World, and I'm honored to be joined by greatness today. We have three amazing co-hosts. Ken Close, as everyone knows from Tech Tip Tuesday, and many, many other things as well. Here to help out. Colette Schnabel, of course, that a lot of you are even more familiar with now from the new Product and Business 101 series. And of course, the famous Doc Steve here to assist as well. So, we've been wanting to put together a Beginners and Beyond like this for quite a while now because we've talked about a lot of different topics, a lot of different categories, resonance scans, remote scans, aura module, microcurrent, the coil, Healy, but it's been a long time, maybe even before since I joined Healy, almost 3 years ago, but just an overview of specifically the resonance databases. So not the all Healy program groups, not the programs that you can run with microcurrent, but specifically these resonance databases, which you'll see here on the agenda. So we're going to go through. We're going to try to keep this to an hour. there's a ton of information to go through, so we won't spend as much time on some of these because they're a little bit more self-explanatory compared to some of the other ones. But we're going to start with Bach flowers, and then we're going to go right into Australian bush flowers, Alaskan Gem Elixirs, creative homeopathy, Schuessler Salts, vital substances, I-Ching, personal growth, and courage. So there might be some on here, some databases on here that you've never used before in your whole entire history at Healy. But we want to just kind of give an overview. We're going to give tips along the way, maybe things you haven't thought of before, situations where you might be beneficial to use some of these other databases. Because, I think, for me, this is like a whole new world. It's like a whole new product, being able to access these other databases in addition to everything else. And of course, we have so many programs available, so many databases that, you kind of can get in this sort of habit of just doing certain things and not realizing what else is out there, what the other potential benefits are of using some of these other databases. So we wanted to highlight these things so you can get the most out of your Healy experience here. So we're going to go ahead and get started, as I mentioned, with Bach flowers, which I think is probably, again, sorry, start with the notice here as well for disclaimer related to the resonance module and information field technology. So let's leave that up there for a second. And then this is what we're talking about today. So with the new Healy 2 app, which we've been talking a lot about since the official launch back at the beginning of August, you'll see that rather than everything being in one big group, everything mixed in together, the Healy program groups, the Healy groups, the resonance databases, they're now separated out. So what you see there on here circled, resonance database, and then you see the databases that we'll be discussing on the right side here as well. We're going to go through these. And Bach flowers, I would say, I think most people, this is probably one of the databases that they're most familiar with. Would you all agree with that? As far as I've heard of it before, at least. And a lot of people, I think, have heard of Bach flowers because of, you see number 39 on this list here, rescue. A lot of people have heard of the rescue remedy for many things before. And you'll see that one, of course, is a combination of 5 of the other Bach flowers. So it's not a separate one. It's a combination of some of the other 38 Bach flowers. And you see, this is one of the great new features of the Analyse 2 app, are these descriptions that you have for most, not all the databases, but most of them. It just kind of gives you a very brief overview of what exactly this is. And you see here, it says Bach flower essences are flower extracts used to harmonize blocked emotions and feelings such as insecurity, lack of self-confidence, and stress. For more than 70 years, Bach flowers have been considered a popular way to deal with emotional imbalances of all kinds. And this database contains the Bach flowers corresponding information patterns. So that's what when we go to vibrate these programs, those information patterns are what we're vibrating into the information field. So again, these were invented by Dr. Edward Bach, in the mid middle 1900s as well, and they've certainly grown in popularity over the years. And I know, Colette, you were going to speak a little bit about, I think we all have something to say about Bach flowers, but as far as, how beneficial these things can be related to blocked emotions and feelings and some of the topics that are listed here.
Yeah. So Bach flowers is my party trick. It's the first thing that I pull out and what I scan people on. And the reason behind that is because it's something tangible, something that they can actually go to their natural food store and buy if they want to actually have the physical form of it, right? And so, especially for people who don't even understand anything about frequencies, who was me. So that's why I always love to start with it, because they get a really nice information readout that Healy provides. And then, they can use them. You can explain to them how the vibrational frequencies are working, and then tell them, but these are real things that you can go and buy. I mean, a lot of people already know what rescue remedy is. That's a lot that's normally at the checkout aisle. If you shop at like a Whole Foods, it's normally right there when you're checking out. And then for myself as a mother, this is another thing that I talk to people about as I'm explaining what Healy is. So as a mom, I love to use this with my children, especially because my children, when I first got Healy, they were still extremely young. And, when your children are young, they can't really express their emotions. And so using this to analyze them and to see what's coming up for them in that moment, then supporting them that way, but also as a mother or as with my husband, we can step back and see if there's something that we can adjust to support them, maybe change something in our routines or change something in the home, and just be able to talk to them more and support them that way.
Yes, great. Thank you so much, Colette. And Doc Steve, I know recently with the focus on animals, kind of the relaunch of the animal module as well, you've talked a lot about how for pets, and talk about the benefits that your dog has had related to whether it's fear of fireworks or loud sounds or just staying calm as well. So what would you kind of add on here as far as how these could be used in everyday life?
Yes, exactly, Jake. As a matter of fact, when I'm working with animals, this is the first database I always run for animals. And as you said, it works great for fear, anxiety, especially around times when dogs are exposed to really loud noises like July 4th. And it works amazingly well. And, these Bach flowers are similar to homeopathic remedies in a way. And they are focused on primarily mental, emotional, spiritual issues, as opposed to most homeopathic remedies that really focus more on the physical realm. So anytime you're dealing with any type of emotional upset or imbalance, always go to Bach flower remedies. They are amazing. They're very powerful. I've used them for over 40 years and recommended them in my practice, and they're excellent. As Colette said, they're really great to use with children.
Perfect. That's amazing. And yeah, we got a question in the chat about, is this chart available in back office or so I actually created all these slides myself for this topic today. There's a lot of screenshots that I'm going to be sharing here as well. But it is a good idea for a marketing team to see if we can put together lists like this of each of the databases so people kind of see what the entries are. You can, of course, see them within the Analyze app, but you've got to kind of scroll through everything to have them all together. And I'm going to talk a little bit also in a bit about some of the materials that are coming soon related to this. But I'm going to switch over to, so this is same thing. You'll see a lot of Lexi and Charlie, which are our two dogs that I have at home. They've given full consent for the results to be shown on the call today. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of show, you can kind of see there was type of things that come back when you do a scan for Bach flowers. And you notice, of course, we always have the present state, desired state, and then there's always great descriptions, especially with Bach flowers. And one of the things also that you can kind of is interesting for this one, that every single result has a related essential oil, gemstone, and orchid. And a lot of times, I think we get a lot of questions about, okay, how is that related to these results, because it's like, well, what do I do with that? Okay, that's great that there's these things that go along with it. What do I do with that? And that is actually, I'm going to share this. What I'm about to share hasn't been released yet. It's not in the final form, but these are just some individual slides that are going to be coming in the near future. There's going to be a Bach Flowers database, materials, presentation, and video as well. It's still in the works, but this is just, I took a handful of slides out of here just to kind of show what this is going to look like here. And, it highlights certain things like rescue remedy, and it explains it's a mixture of 5 of them in cases of acute imbalances, which is why it's called rescue, because it needs to be dealt with right away. So there's some very cool stuff coming, but this is the part I wanted to show, because as I mentioned, it says here in almost all the entries, an essential oil, gemstone, and orchid are listed. So it says if you feel the entry is burdening you, buy the essential oil, as Colette just kind of mentioned there earlier too. That's why it's listed there along with that description, because you can get, to me, I don't know if this is the right way to describe it, but for a lot of, if you're doing a scan in the resonance module for, say, Healy program groups, you can vibrate that information or those patterns into the information field, but then you can offer those to the Healy program groups. You can also run them with microcurrent. So you're kind of doing both. But for these databases, the only way to do that, the only access, you can't use microcurrent with these databases that we're going through now. So this is kind of like, for me, the equivalent of, okay, let's vibrate this in the Analyze app and then go run it with microcurrent. Instead, let's vibrate this with the Analyze app, and then let's go get, if it's really a big topic, the essential oils, or go get the gemstone, or as you mentioned, it shows here too, you can also just put an orchid of that's listed there as the screenshot on your phone, so you see it on a regular basis too, which is kind of a cool tip. So this is very exciting for me, and I'm sure for all of you that we're working on. The marketing team is doing a great job of coming up with a lot of these new materials. And of course, this is also mentioned, the gemstone comes up as one of the high relevance. Maybe get that gemstone and carry it around with you for a few weeks while this is a topic. So I'm not the expert on this kind of stuff, but did any, Doc Steve, Ken, and Colette, anything to add to these types of tips that might help even get better results through the Bach flower remedy scans?
Just that these other applications are in resonance with the frequency of the Bach flowers, and so they magnify the effect. So absolutely, if an issue comes up that's a really important issue for you, you want to go out and do as much as you can to release that emotional burden. And again, using the gemstones or the orchids will just add to the release of that issue.
Another thing to add to that too is, as Colette mentioned, and Jake, you can go out and purchase the essential oils. You can purchase the crystals. You can purchase the nutrients in tea forms, all kinds of things. And as we're going to talk about within the vital substances section, as you ingest these things or expose yourself to these other physical entities, the Healy system increases cell receptor site receptivity. So think about how you're increasing bioavailability of what you're ingesting with the added amplification, as Doc said, amplifying these with frequency. It's a coherent signal. You're just boosting the influence on your body.
Perfect. All right, let's move on. This next database that we're going to cover is actually related to the first one. So Australian bush flowers, the second database that comes up on the list in the resonance databases. And this one's actually, it's very similar, related as far as how it works with Bach flowers, because Bach flowers have been around before this particular database, or the Australian bush flowers, that was developed by Ian White in Australia, of course. But he's traveled around the country. He was introduced to Bach flowers, bush flowers, at a very young age. And traveled around Australia for 40 years trying to kind of figure out the ones that have the most benefits. And these are essentially used in a similar method as as Bach flower. So he was actually inspired by Dr. Edward Bach, and kind of did an Australian version of that, which is very cool. You see here, this one's made up of 68 different Australian bush flowers, and it's I'll skip to this next one here, but you see here, the history on this, specifically Australian bush flowers, dates back thousands of years. I think there's history really going back to the 12th century, as far as the how they're used to harmonize emotional and spiritual imbalances, which of course then those often lead to the cause or be the cause of many of our physical symptoms that do show up. So, and you see on the right here, this is just an example. Again, Lexi and Charlie back at it. But for one of those scans, for Charlie, for example, a gray spider flower came up, and that's related to trust, composure, and courage, which for Charlie, who's had a very anxious dog, and gets scared a lot, it's very relevant for him. So I don't, this one isn't one that I think that's discussed as much as Bach flowers, but there's a ton of benefits to these as well. So, anything you all want to add to this particular database before we move on to the next one, or? Okay.
Well, I mean, primarily, Jake, it's an expansion of the Bach flowers in a way, because it allows you to have more in-depth issues. The larger the database, the more in-depth and specific you can get. And so this is more, to me, it goes hand in hand with the Bach flower remedies, and it's an expansion. And actually, Jake, it's not just the Bach flower and the Australian bush flowers, but these days you'll find dozens of different types of flower remedies that are available and out there that you can get. So if you look online, you'll see that it's not just restricted these days to Bach flowers and bush flowers, but many different sets of flower remedies are now being used around the world. So
great. No, that's great to know. And as I mentioned, I'm very excited for this call as well, because I'm here to learn too. Pick up tips from all of you as well. And if you have any tips for any of these things that we're talking about in your own experience, it's certainly great to put those in the chat and share them with everybody else as well. If you had certain things that we kind of missed or didn't cover, or things that you've picked up along the way from your experience using these as well. So let's move on to Alaskan Gem Elixirs. And this is the very first database that shows up, unless you've reordered your databases manually inside of the resonance module. But so these aren't flowers, but these are gemstone elixirs, or tonics, that are produced by putting the gemstones in water. So rather than the flower itself, you're putting the gemstones in the water. And you'll see they're commonly used to harmonize blockages, with each stone being said to have a specific effect. So, and also you can see it's also used to harmonize the chakras. And then this is the same method for all of these, is that we're essentially taking the corresponding information patterns of these gemstones and then vibrating those into the information field. So again, this is a sort of a mid-sized database as far as the number of entry goes at 48. But you'll see here the entire list on the right side. And then let's switch over quickly to, again, back to Lexi and Charlie. And you'll see here, for example, Diamond came up for Lexi, and it says it brings clarity to the sixth chakra, harmonizes divine and personal will, helps us activate personal will in its highest form, and strengthens our ability to act in alignment with divine purpose. So that's a very, very powerful description there for desired state. And then again, for Charlie, I kind of found this one a little funny, that opens the heart to awareness of our own angelic presence. So yes, Charlie the angel. So, but yeah, if any of you have any sort of specific tips or experiences with these Alaskan Gem Elixirs, because these are, again, something that you can also find as well. And yeah, I guess, Darla, yes, in the comments here, I don't use these databases enough. Same with me. this is why we wanted to do this, because they're so powerful. There's so many benefits to using these other databases that want to remind everybody that don't just stick with the Healy programs, branch out into these other databases as well.
So these gem elixirs are very similar to, in a way, I relate it to like working with crystals. It's the same kind of a frequency that you find with a lot of these stones that you would find with people that commonly work with various crystals. And what I noticed with the Alaskan Gem Elixirs is that whereas the Bach flower remedies work more on the mental emotional aspect of the body, the Alaskan Gem Elixirs tend to work more on a spiritual level of the body too. So if you want to add that aspect to what you're looking for, then I would go to this database.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the gemstone elixirs pair well with the Bach flower remedies because they kind of work well together, and you kind of amplify the things that you're working on there. Okay.
Well, you were going to say something?
Yeah. So the first time I had ever experienced gem elixirs, I didn't know that's what they were called. I was in Austria with my son, and I found these drinking crystals. I was like, what is this? And so when you do put them in the water, it changes the water, just as when we use mag Healy on our water. The taste changes, the viscosity changes. And so you can, again, you can do the party trick with this, and you could go into a crystal shop. I mean, obviously you'd want to find ones that don't have things coated on it, and you could take it in there and scan it. And I've done this when I'm there, and people are like, what are you doing? Right? Oh, I'm just seeing which ones I'm needing right now, and to see if they have it in here. Another thing that I've done, local crystal shops, if I have a relationship with them, I've asked like, hey, would you care if I come in one day, and when your clients come in, can I offer to analyze them, and then they can pick out the ones that they need? Some are resonant with that and say, yeah. So that's just another way that you can kind of get Healy out there and start sharing it with people too.
And there's a company out there, Jake, that sells, I forget the name. I actually have one. It was given to me as a gift. There's a company out there that sells these glass containers that actually contain the crystal inside. And you just fill it with water, and you leave the water in there for about 5 minutes or so, and then you drink it. And they have a whole array of various gemstones that you can choose from. So that's another way of it's almost like with the mag Healy when we send the frequencies into water with a mag Healy, that is a way of sending the actual gemstone frequencies in water. It is again a company that actually makes this.
Oh, that's great tip. Very cool. And I wanted to, if you're following the chat, Lori, thank you for this comment here. This is, I think, worth sharing. Here it says, related to the Alaskan Gem Elixirs and the 3 databases that we've been using so far, is that they're all wonderful to use in conjunction with the coaching module to ease the depth of emotions that can arise when clearing deep subconscious programs. They're like gentle rain on the emotional field. Love that. Thank you.
I love that. As you mentioned earlier too, Jake, in Doc talking about the spiritual aspects, when we look at water and its influence on this life form, these bodies, these physical 3-dimensional bodies, is that understand that the communications channel between the 800,000 cells per second being recreated in your body, the communications channel is through water, through the intracellular and extracellular water content within these bodies. And specifically, the modality of communication is light frequency. And so the reason why our bodies are essentially, you guys are familiar with the chakras and you see the coloring schemes, the lowest frequency of light is red, or below the visual spectrum is infrared. We can't even see it yet. And the highest frequency of light is violet or purple. And you see a rainbow and you'll see it kind of oriented that way. And our bodies are also set up that way. Our root chakra is what color? It's red, right? And as we move up the body, the higher frequencies of light change in color. And so our crown chakra is that purple, higher frequency color. And so this is, again, ways that the system is implemented into the body. It's through light energy or frequency. It's all frequency. Does that make sense?
Perfectly.
Great stuff.
All right, so we're moving on to the biggest resonance database that we have. I know, Doc Steve, you got some tips here as well. But before we do that, so you'll see here, there's 347 entries within here. And Ken, we've heard this on Tech Tip Tuesday. Sometimes people are running a scan like, why does it take so long for creative homeopathy? It's like, well, there's a lot of information that's being analyzed there. You know, if you take one that has 347 entries versus one that has 39, like Bach flowers, there's a huge difference in the amount of time it takes to run through that there. But again, this one is super popular. You see here, it says this unique database was created by Anthony Pepler, a very popular and successful practitioner in Germany. It contains the information patterns of a variety of agents and their emotional meanings and backgrounds. It is especially used to deal with stress and its causes. And you see, I have put in a note here just because for those of you that have been with Healy for a long time, there used to be a separate database called Materia Medica, which was kind of merged in with this new master one. But for those of you that have been here for a long time, you still have that separate database in addition to this new one. But anybody that's new, that's joined since May 3rd, 2021, it's all together in this one big master database that we have here. So, Doc Steve, where do you start with something that has 347? I know that's why we have the Healy device to narrow it down for us, but
well, this is one of my all-time favorite databases, and also one that I find is the least used by people out there because they really aren't familiar with what this can do and what it does. And it was developed, as you said, by Anthony Pepler, who's a Swiss-German homeopath, and she worked a lot with, psychic and emotional patterns in the body. And so the way this particular set of frequencies work is that it's very deep. It works a lot with psychological imprints and trauma. I find that what comes up relates to a lot of the issues that we've developed in early childhood that we haven't cleared. And then from another aspect, I like to relate it to Carl Jung's shadow self work, where it's sort of the side of ourselves that we don't reveal to the world, but it's there. It's sort of the opposite of the persona. It's what's underneath. It's really deep. And a lot of it deals with the unconscious mind. But what I find about this particular database is that it's one of the most accurate of all the databases, one being the fact that there are so many entries. So the more the entries, the more specific you can get with the database. But I'll tell you, the first time I used this, it knocked me off my chair, literally, because it will usually reveal what I like to refer to as your secret self. In other words, the patterns that you have that you're aware of that you never want anyone to know about you. And most of them, again, are developed, in early childhood. And also, it can also be things from generational, so family karma situations that are passed down through families, parents, grandparents, those types of issues that are collectively set in a family setting are also part of this. It, again, really dovetails and works nicely with the coaching program because, especially the personal coaching program, because if you really want to know the origins of what some of the issues are that you're currently carrying right now, you can use this and really trace it back to patterns that have developed in early childhood. So again, it is an amazing database, one that is one of my favorites, and it always blows. If you want to blow somebody away, you run this. But I'll tell you one thing that I recommend. I recommend that when you have somebody run the Creative Homeopathic Psyche database, that you let them run the database. In other words, when the results come up, have them read it to themselves and decide whether or not they want to share it with you or not. because so many of these issues that show up are very, very deep, especially when it relates to a lot of, traumas that a person may have been experiencing when they were younger as a child. And it may not be something that they're willing to outwardly share with you at the moment. So whenever I run this, I give my phone or my tablet over to the client, and I just set it up for them to run. And then I tell them to read it to themselves. And if they want to share it with me, great. And if they don't, I totally understand, because this can get into really, really deep types of work there on that level. And so I feel that it's a personal issue, and it may not be ready to be brought out forward to the world.
Amazing. And for those reasons that you just mentioned, that's why I use my dog's results here, not results of my own. What were you saying?
Yeah. So Doc, with your clients, would you, or if your downline that have this program, access to this, would they still be using the suggested time of like the 2 minutes, 50 seconds and continue using that list for over a month? Or what would you suggest?
Yeah, I mean, I would use that as a basis. And again, whenever I run any of these types of programs, be it the Bach flowers, the Gem Elixirs, or the Psyche programs, I have them continue to run it until they feel that issue is no longer currently present with them, that it's sort of gone through its process and it's been released. But yes, I would follow the chart there in terms of how to run it, long to run it. You don't need to run these vibrations very long when you're dealing on the mental, emotional, and spiritual levels. Less is more. So you only need to run it, a few seconds at a time, maybe a couple of times a day, for it to have a powerful effect.
As Jake mentioned there, because of the size of the database, it takes longer for the analysis, right? The system is still working at the speed of light, folks. Understand, it's really hard to fathom that kind of speed. And yet within the database, there are multitudes of frequencies available for each individual substance. And so it's going through, there's 347 entries here, but within that 347, there is a frequency assignment. And so the amount of processing going on behind the scenes, even at the speed of light, and people are saying like, come on, hurry up and get done. I only have 3 minutes here, right? And you're used to one taking 30 seconds. This is tremendous content, everyone, that is going through and picking very specific ones only aligned for your physical bodies. Okay, so I as an engineer, I'm blown away by the process. I love it.
Perfect. So these next couple slides, I'm not going to go. It's kind of overwhelming to see all this information as far as all the databases, but this is exactly straight from the Analyse app here. Now we're going to next one.
And Jake, I mean, these are all, as we mentioned, these are all, homeopathic remedies, and there are thousands of homeopathic remedies. I am a homeopath also, as part of what I do. I studied in the 70s, and there are homeopathic, what are called, I'm here in the office here, homeopathic, what are called materia medicas, that contain every one of the homeopathic remedies, and allows you to look it up and get a lot more information. So I recommend that if you really get into this database, that you go online and buy a materia medica that allows you to look up these individual homeopathic remedies and get much more in-depth information about it.
Nice, great tip. Okay.
I'd like to, while you see the next slide here, I'd like to just do a little quick disclaimer, everyone, as you see some of the disclaimers in frequency energy protocols. Another thing to consider, understand that just like if you're doing tangible ingestion of nutrients, minerals, and those kind of things, your body's going to experience physical effects. And so pay attention to these bodies as you're doing these. As Doc said, sometimes it's just a few seconds, multiple times. But the individual client, and I guarantee you, anyone who works professionally with clients, they're going to suggest that you pay close attention to the body, because it's going to have detox conditions. It's going to have maybe aggressive kind of functions because of this. And even irritability. So, I don't like to call anything a side effect, but there is an effect from this implication. Okay. So make sure that we're paying attention and utilizing your self-care protocols. And we'll talk about that later.
I want to add something to what you said, Ken, because I think it's really important. In the whole field of homeopathy, it's sort of the opposite of pharmaceutical medication, in that pharmaceuticals tend to suppress an issue. So although you don't have the symptoms anymore, that issue has been suppressed deep in the cells of the body. Whereas with homeopathy, you're getting the exact opposite type of an effect, where you're literally getting a release of the issue or the condition in the system. So yeah, there may be some aggravations that can occur during the process, but I find that less so with the vibrational frequencies as opposed with actually consuming the actual remedy itself. But again, remember, homeopathy, which are all the databases we've basically spoken about up to this point, is all about releasing the issue as opposed to suppressing the issue, which is what Western medicine primarily does with medication, with psychotropic medication. They're more looking at dealing with eradicating symptoms, and they don't really eradicate them. They just push them further down in the cell level memory of the body. So that's why I love working with homeopathy, because you really get the actual release from the cells of the body.
That's a great point. I'm glad you all brought that up, because a lot of times when we talk about overdoing it, it's specifically people worry, oh, well, I don't want to run too much microcurrent. But it's not just microcurrent. You also need to be listening to your body and be aware when you're doing the vibration via the Analyze app as well. It's not like, oh, well, it's just vibrating and I can do it 24/7. That's not the case. Yep. Okay, so this next one here, Schuessler Salts. Again, this is one of the smaller databases. It's pretty simple to understand here, and this is actually one of the ones where it's one of the ones in line after Bach flowers to have a marketing materials video to go along with it as well. So that's exciting that'll be coming up soon over the next, probably within the next 2 months. More information on this database. Colette, I know you. Essentially, I mean, these are mineral salts, and we're vibrating these information patterns of these salts into the information field. So, is there any key tips or points you wanted to make regarding this database here?
So I like this one. I just did it again right before we did the call, and as always, you're just like, gosh, darn it, it's always getting me right on the spot. But I love this as well, because we're working here with emotional states as well. But then if you look at that bottom part, if you look here, what he has with Lexi, that it's saying that, the sodium bicarbonate is also going to go for the information field, but supporting the joints, metabolism, and the gastro tract. So it's also still pointing things within physical areas that, that maybe be like, oh, wow, right? Yeah, I have been having or feeling certain things. So I like that it's working not only on the emotional, but there is physical body that's showing up as well. And that was one thing I know we've seen people in here asking about materia medica. And that had a lot more in there, and that they've said that it's been put in with the creative homeopathy, but I like that that's still in here with the Schuessler salts. So this is another great one to use when you are working and presenting Healy to future clients or members, or if you're hosting events or whatever. I use this one a lot.
So with the Schuessler salts, I find that it's primarily, up to now, we really deal with mental, emotional, spiritual. Schuessler salts are really primarily used on the physical level. I mean, all homeopathic remedies, by the way, have indications on the mental, physical, emotional, spiritual levels. But for the Schuessler salts themselves, they are primarily minerally based, and they do work more on the physical level than on the other levels. And I also want to just throw in here the fact that this is an excellent database to use with animals, because especially it works a lot with joints and things of that nature. And as your animals get older, there's a greater need for these types of minerals. to be used. So it's another one of those databases that I absolutely run when I'm working with animals.
I love that. If I could add something too, is, and Colette talked about some of the body functions. I mean, these are, remember what we talked about too in terms of hydration. I mean, Doc's mentioned it. I mean, everybody has mentioned it when we're talking about hydration. Also, electrolytes, right? Minerals are the electrolytes. Minerals are the spark plugs to the cell. So really the energy resources, and the brain is a mineral engine, by the way. When you're low on that content, when the brain starts to lose some of its key functions, in the electrolytes and these minerals have very critical jobs within the body, such as, fluid regulation and neurotransmission within the nervous system. So, I mean, this is another great database for improving, like Doc said, the physical aspects of these bodies.
And another hint here for people when they go through these different databases is you'll see, for example, with all the Schuessler salts, that next to it says D6. What is D6? Well, in homeopathy, we have various types of what are called potencies. And the D potencies are the potencies that are used to work on the physical level, whereas the C and the M potencies are the ones that are used to work on the mental, emotional, and spiritual levels. So sometimes if you want to see a specific, when you're looking at a specific database or you're looking at an actual result that you get when you run these databases, take a look at the numbers, the letter and the number that appears next to the actual substance that you're running. And again, if it's in the D range, it's running on a physical level. If it's on the C range, it's running more on a mental, emotional level. And if you see that an M comes up, then you're dealing primarily more on a spiritual level, because as those numbers come up, D stands for 10 and C stands for 100 and M stands for 1,000. That means that those remedies have been made by actually, homeopathic remedies are made by actually shaking those remedies that amount of times. And so what happens is you come up with what's called an energy frequency pattern as opposed as a physical remedy itself. One of the reasons that there's always been an issue in science about homeopathic remedies is because when they analyze the remedy itself, they never can find the actual substance in the remedy. And the reason for that is that it isn't the substance anymore. It's actually the energetic pattern of that substance that was what it makes work. So when I talk about, energetic medicine, and I talk about, the oldest form is 5,000 years ago, acupuncture, but another old form of energetic medicine is homeopathy from the 1700s, because again, they were working on a purely energetic realm there. So it really dovetails great with all the work that we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. All right, let's move. So Ken, vital substances. This is one where I know we get a lot of questions of someone maybe that's joined new since August 1st, 2022. Where is vital substances? It's a one over time. What comes with each edition, due to certain global regulatory constraints that we have, and to have one database available in each of the markets, we have to make certain changes. So if you remember, before August 1st, 2022, you have access to this vital substances database. For those of you that are new since August 1st, 2022, this doesn't come in the resonance module. There's a different database that's been added. It doesn't replace vital substances. It's just been added since that one was removed. It's called Courage, which we'll talk about at the end of this call. But this is an important database. And I know, Ken, you wanted to talk a little bit about these topics here, because this is a powerful database as well.
It is very powerful because we're talking about the body. We're talking about the non-physical as well as the physical. And as Doc mentioned, you've got the various categories in which dilutions of these things address. And so as we're looking at, say, the vital substances, what's in here there's everything from minerals, vitamins, amino acids. And I want to talk kind of specifically around amino acids, because there are some vital amino acids or needs of the body that the body doesn't have to actually produce. It needs to resource that from outside of itself. And also understand, folks, that when we're talking about vital substances or some of the Bach flowers, or even as we get into what relates to digital nutrition, I want to correlate some understandings here with frequency versus ingestion. When we eat food, this is not replacing the need to eat food. We need to eat, have a good diet, healthy diet. As I work with performance athletes or weight management clients, or even anyone just looking at changing mental concepts or balances within their brain, we talk about what they're eating. Every single time I'll go to what your diet is, and I'll have them record that so we can take a look at some essential things within it. And the essential amino acids are one of the things I want to talk about, because there's 9 essential amino acids that our body doesn't produce on its own, but it's critical in creating the various proteins and systems that we operate, including, say, neurotransmitters, right, which helps us to feel good, or to be more clear with our thoughts. And I just shared a link in the chat there. So for you guys that are live here, we'll have that link. You can copy that link, give it a shot. What it's going to do is going to kind of give you some basics on essential amino acids. They're all contained here in this database. And when you do an evaluation, a scan on yourself using any one of these databases, what it's looking for is the dissonance in your body. In other words, what it needs, not the abundance, but the dissonance. So meaning that you do a scan, it finds the quantum blueprint of you. That's the client. It's already got that resource. So that's one side of the equation. On the other side of the equation is the database you choose. Say it's vital substances or Bach flower, whatever it is. And the difference engine, or the analysis part, is a interface between that quantum version and that physical version, and finding what best aligns you to be back into that balanced state. And so it's going to pop up within this database. It's going to pop up things that you're missing in your dietary plan, or what you're missing in your resources in terms of what you're ingesting. So this is critical, folks. It does not replace eating food. Don't think that you can go on a Healy diet. You can use it in terms of regulation, in terms of body mass, that kind of thing. I use it all the time in a performance way. And I know, every one of you, by the way, everyone on this call, everyone's going to listen to this recording, every one of you is an athlete to some degree, because the fact that you have a body in motion, or even a body in evolution, means that you're moving within that athletic modality. Some are just on the field playing the game. Others are maybe out observing the game. Does that make sense? So this entire energetic influence is a way of aligning what's missing. And this vital substance, take a look at the document I shared with you guys. It gives you some of the essential amino acids. And when you align those, everything from thought process, hormonal balance, neural function, muscle synthesis, all of that starts to align. Because the other reason that Healy uses microcurrent, and this is studies from the early 1900s, folks, that microcurrent increases ATP production, which is the energy in the cell, increases protein synthesis and amino acid transport. So this is science that's available anywhere. You guys can look it up. This is why Healy uses microcurrent. So when we use these databases to create a list of the dissonance, the things that are missing, right, in this body, and then we vibrate that content via the Healy's transmitting system into the body is like an antenna receiving this information, decoding the content, and then expressing the frequencies in the body to do what? Well, if you're ingesting food properly, it's going to increase the bioavailability of the content. If you have none of those resources on board your body, it's going to start giving the cell receptor sites the open door, so that when any of this comes to your body, it's instantly grabbed and used within the body. Okay, so make sure that you're using these databases and understand what they're doing, because that's the process. That's it.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ken. And And put the link for those of you that were looking at it. It's a little bit up if you scroll on the chat. They posted again here in a little bit, Ken, just for everybody, so they can access that document that you had there too. So
yeah.
Okay.
Can I just add one thing with that?
Yes. Yes.
A question as well geared towards Ken, because this is something that I use all the time, especially with the biohackers when I do big events. That this one, they want to see this a lot. And one gentleman in particular, he was a much older gentleman, and I analyzed him. And I remember the top one was molybdenum, and he's like, "Well, I took X amount of units of that this morning." And I think you were even there, Jake, or Adriana was there, where I was like, well, I wasn't like sure because, and so, but then if you remember, Healy's just bringing us back to balance. So if he's having too much of it, the Healy's going to help bring him back to balance for that. Is that what you would say? Right?
Absolutely. Because again, like I mentioned, there's a perfect blueprint within the quantum field, AKA the client. When you put the content in there, it starts building the model of the client. And the assessment of the client, when you do that vibrational part and you vibrate your signal into that client record, that's then giving a very clear quantum blueprint of the client. And so then when you choose a database, the difference engine is basically what we call it in engineering. It's looking at the difference between one form of information and the other form of information and finding out what aligns that or what bridges the gap. So if this client has too much of anything, and on the other side is the database, it's going to come up with things, it's going to come up with things that are opposite. In other words, some of these minerals are transport mechanisms or carriers for other minerals, right? And so they partner. And so and other things negate certain things. So in other words, it's important to understand what you're ingesting, that in some cases, you're negating your goal because you're taking in the wrong content. And so if somebody's taking too much of something, there is, let's put it this way, incoherent signals, right, to down-regulate what there's too much of. So yes, it brings an amazing balance. This is, I think, probably if we could just show people and teach people that one thing, not only is it increasing certain energies that are necessary or missing, but is decreasing things and energies that are too abundant and non-serving us.
And Colette, there's one point I want to make here too, which you have to kind of look at. So you said that the person was taking molybdenum, that morning, but the reason he was taking molybdenum that morning was probably because he looked it up somewhere and realized he was deficient in it. So in effect, it can be, even though somebody's taking it, it doesn't necessarily mean, there's an overbalance of it, but they're taking it because of the inherent deficiency, and the device will actually pull up the inherent deficiency, even though they're taking it at that time.
Yeah, there's a time delay. There's a time delay between when you ingest something and the bioavailability of the body and the implication. In other words, the body starts to use this resource and put it on globally within the system, because Healy's analyzing the global system, the entire client. And so some of these things take a minute, or actually longer, or a lot longer, to get through the system. Yeah, good point, Doc.
Okay, thank you all. So next here, I-Ching. So Doc Steve, I remember it's probably been more than a year ago now on What's Up Wednesday. You did an quick overview of this database, and it was one of my favorite What's Up Wednesdays because I had no idea what this was at all.
Okay.
And how it could be used. But you see here, we have a nice little description that's included with the app. It's a historical collection of Chinese prophecies. They consist of 64 basic characters, hexagrams, describing various themes and the connections between one's own actions and the resulting consequences without judging them in any way. So this database contains the information patterns of the I-Ching. So what can we say about this one?
Well, another one of my all-time favorite databases. And interestingly enough, in the early 70s, when I was a senior in college, I took a Chinese philosophy course for a year. And what we basically did was we studied the I-Ching. We took the entire year to study all the hexagrams of the I-Ching. So I have known about and use the I-Ching since the early 70s. As you said, it's been around for thousands and thousands of years. It's an ancient method of Chinese divination, but it's not fortune telling. And that's really, really important, that it's not to really predict the future or talk about the future, but it only really works if you're serious when you use this database. And again, it's about a situation, an important situation that is occurring for you personally, not for others, but for you personally. And as specific as you get, when you actually scan yourself for this database, you want to, in your mind, be as specific as you can be about and bring to your mind the situation that you're asking a question about. And then you will get a pretty interesting result. It may take a little bit to interpret. The thing about it is you don't want to ask questions about the future. You don't want to ask yes/no questions. You want to basically frame it in terms of what is happening with this particular situation? What is the outcome of this particular situation? And what I also recommend people do, if you really like this particular database, there's a book, the one that we used in school that was just mentioned above. It's called the I-Ching Book of Changes by Wilhelm Baines. That's sort of the classical book that you can use. And then you can look up the various, what are called hexagrams, and get more in-depth information about it. The thing is that sometimes it'll say things like the superior man in terms of a response there, and basically that means you when you're following the right path. So again, you want to be very specific with the question. The more specific with the question you are, the more specific the answer will be. Again, it's advice. It's not a prediction. It's giving you advice of how to follow a certain way, or if you're following the right way, or if maybe you're off track. And again, straightforward and direct questions that are relevant to your own situation is the best way to go about this. Again, it's not a fortune-telling situation, but it's really designed to help you give further support to the direction that you're choosing to go in a certain situation. For example, you could say, should I look for a different job? Should we buy this house? How should I deal with the problems in my relationship? Those kinds of really deep personal questions that you have. And again, the more specific you are, the better the outcome will be.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And, this one has 64, and we saw the first 39 entries on this page, and then the last 25 are on this page here. So yeah, this is a very, very cool database, very unique, to be able to have the ability for us to scan and run these information patterns via our Healy device.
And the results you get are more, I would say, on what I call a philosophical realm. So sometimes it may take you to read this over a bunch of times before you can really get the gist or the understanding of what is actually being told to you. And again, there are many books out there. The one I mentioned is the classic book, but there are many books out there that you can get that will actually take each one of the hexagrams, they're called hexagrams, each one of them, and go through, really in detail what it means and do a specific interpretation of it. Because sometimes it's a little bit more obtuse or a little bit more difficult to interpret, but an amazing tool to use when you reach that point in yourself where you have a very burning question about something that's really important, and you want to make sure you're making the right decision about going on a certain path or doing something. If you run the I-Ching, it'll give you some real valuable guidance and information of whether things should change or you should go ahead with the way you're proceeding.
As we talked about the physical body, and Doc just talked about it here, it's to read the content and over again. I get questions all the time. Well, hey, how often do I do a scan? Well, the thing about doing a scan and then implementing the frequency information is that happens in an instant. Like how long do we run something? Well, your information field is upregulated at the speed of light in an instant. However, the three-dimensional body in space and time, as I mentioned before, takes a little bit longer once you ingest, whether you're eating something or you're getting a magnetic signal into the body. The physical, tangible body takes a bit. And so to read something over and over, or to be influenced by something over and over, starts to build neurological bundles in the brain. And the more you do actions within your life under the pretense or the understanding of this new information, the more it solidifies and creates more neural synaptic connections. So this is part of the evolution of this body. Is the nervous system gets an instant change. Have you ever had an aha moment? Right? You knew something in an instant because, wow, aha, I realized this. But then to implement that into your life might take a little time. So in other words, somebody tells you how to do a different bicep exercise and you go, yay, all right, this is awesome. But do you have a bicep that changes that moment? No, it takes a minute. So this is very good information to understand what Doc's talking about here in terms of repeating and rehearsing.
Yes, perfect. Yeah, this is great. Now I know we're a little bit past time. We just got to play about 10 minutes or so more to go here. I was going to show a personal growth database video, but we already showed that on Frequencies and Friends, What's Up Wednesday. It's the same one. So rather than share that here, you can just go to, I have the QR codes. You can see the personal growth video. It's just scan that. It'll take you right to the Vimeo page to watch that video. And the one on the right is the personal growth training video where Martin Whitman was part of Frequencies and Friends on June 1st, 2023. He did around a 15-minute or so segment on the personal growth database. That's the one, the audio is a little bit low on his segment, so you have to turn up your volume all the way, probably on your computer or smart device. But it's a great training where Martin Whitman went over that as well. So, but we're gonna essentially, for personal growth, we've been talking about this for several months now, but this is the first month that it's actually been available for purchase. So we've been able to earn it. It came with certain devices for new members, and then if you referred certain members with certain additions, and you also got it as the sponsor. But it is now available for a great price, 60% off for the month of September, based off the regular price, which would be $303. So this is available in your shop right now. If anyone has heard about this, been wanting to try it out, you can go ahead and go to your shop and do that. But here's what comes in personal growth. There's 81 database entries, and you'll see here, this is a great simple description that comes on the page, on the database page. It says, often our soulmates trigger deep-rooted traumas from our childhood or youth, and we often react to this with rejection and feel hurt. With the personal growth database, you can analyze in the information field with which the topic you currently have the greatest resonance, and reflect on what stands behind this topic for you. So the video explains it a little bit more. Martin Whitman explains it in even more detail on that training, so you check those out. But these are the kind of entries that are included within this database, and it's very simple to run. Here's part 2, and then part 3. So some of these are, this is one of the things where I didn't run these specific ones on Lexi and Charlie. We kind of showed them enough. They do need some personal growth, but gave them a break on this one. But this is it's a powerful database. It has a ton of great topics, and this pairs well, of course, with also the coaching module as well, because there's some similar type topics going on here with the coach module, and then also the personal growth. And then finally, this last one here, which we're going to move over to close, courage. So this is the one.
Jake, let me just jump in real quick.
Yeah.
Just to say something about this. I love using the personal growth database with people that are working with or looking to create affirmations for themselves. So if somebody, wants to work in that realm where they want to work up with affirmations, I like to run the personal growth database and have them choose some of the top ones that showed up for them and have them use it as an actual affirmation, to write it down, to say it out loud a number of times per day, to anchor it in. So it's really great with people that do affirmation work.
Perfect. Perfect. And yeah, so when you run these, one of the other reasons why I didn't do the screen shares from actual results, the results that come back, it's gonna bring, these statements that you see here are exactly what's going to be returned. There's not additional information below that on these entries there. So again, it's pretty simple to understand as far as what's being returned back to you in those results after your scan. Okay, and then courage. So the final database that we're going to be discussing today, this is the newest one, probably that people know the least the least amount about. But this is a big database. Other than creative homeopathy, 152 entries in the courage database, and this is the only way to get this is if you have purchased a Resonance edition or higher since August 1st, 2022. So you know, vital substances was removed for, or not included for new users, but this courage database is, and there's no way to purchase this database on a standalone basis right now, but we wanted to just do a quick overview of this one just so you can kind of see what is included. 152 entries, of course, so there's a ton here. Again, this one's similar to personal growth as far as the information that's returned after doing a scan. Is basically the statements that you're resonating the most with at that particular time. So this one, again, I know, Lori, everything's pairs. A lot of the things we talked about today pair very well with coaching module, but personal growth and courage for sure pair well also with that coaching module. So I know we've got a lot of questions here about the list of these database entries, and right now, there is no place to find them in back office or in shop. That's something that will definitely work with the market. I think there's value in kind of seeing what is in some of these databases, not just for existing members and customers getting the most out of the database, but anyone new that's considering purchasing a Healy too. I think it's worth having that information out there to kind of see how extensive these things are. So. Yeah.
You know, there's a question in here or a comment in here about posting how long to run each of these programs that you've discussed today. So we did talk a little bit about that, and Doc mentioned depending on some of the things. If we're looking at things that are within the psyche, you know, it's good to run them for short periods of time, but often. We need to look at the kind of the checks and balance. We implement something, and then we need to take a look at the effect, right? Give it a minute, give it a day, right? Give it some time, because like I mentioned, we keep talking about this body is this three-dimensional object, and there is a perfect blueprint for every one of you. It lives in the quantum field. It is objective. The moment that we start to have an awareness, a consciousness, now we're taking this objective blueprint and we're solidifying it into matter. It requires consciousness to observe material form, right? The observer effect. So these bodies are a result of this mind's filtering system from the complete blueprint to maybe something that's less complete, that's in need. And so when we start to implement something in a frequency realm, we got to give it time. And the bodies are your messenger. Listen to them. We don't listen to our body enough. It doesn't have the same vocabulary as we have within our verbal content, but it's critical that we start to understand what it's saying. And an agitated body is one that you need to listen to. Okay. So I just want to put that in there and make sure that we're definitely doing our self-care protocol of being aware.
Yes, definitely. So that covers the databases. You know, some of them we went a little more in detail than others, but to close here, Colette, Doc Steve, Ken, anything you want to add before we wrap up? And
just to
okay,
use
so
I mean, these are things that most people just ignore because they just don't know anything about it, and just encourage people to start running these and see what kind of results that they receive, and then share it with their teams and other people that are using Healy. Because again, I find that when when I onboard somebody or when I introduce this, they have no clue, or they've not looked at it, or they've avoided it because they didn't know what it was. So start playing around with these databases and using them and see what kind of results you get. They're really amazing.
That's exactly why we wanted to cover this information, because it is so powerful. And then I think there's many people on this call that probably have never used these data, very little at all. And I hope after this call, it's like you got a whole new device. You got this whole new world that's opened up to you, where you're not just using all Healy programs that you're familiar with. Move into some of these databases as well. Give them a try, because there is so much value there. And that's why when you purchase a Healy device, Resonance or higher, it comes with all of these databases. I mean, there's tremendous value once you actually look at everything that we have access to. So, and thank you so much, Doc Steve, Ken, and Colette, for being willing to share what you've learned and your expertise from over the years. That's what makes this Healy community so great, is that everyone is willing to share and help out, because we want everybody to have the best experience possible. And we're all learning together each day as far as how we can get the most out of our Healy devices, and it's beautiful. So
I love the fact
and these databases are especially great for people that are coaches or people that are practitioners, because again, you can use these with your clients or your patients and get a lot of valuable information about them.
Make sure you guys save the chat. If you don't know how to do that, if you're on your PC or your laptop, down at the bottom where you've been putting in your chat information next to the smiley face, 3 little dots down there, click on those. It'll give you a drop-down window, a menu to say save chat. At the end of this call, there'll be a pop-up on your screen that says save chat. You can take all that content, links and all, and put it in a file somewhere on your hard drive, on your smart device, not your smart device, sorry, on your laptop or your computer. And guess what? This is recorded. So Jake and his team is going to make an amazing file for us to play with.
Yeah. We'll definitely, this recording will be available on our Healy World America's channel on YouTube. You can get to it directly by going to HealyAmericas.com. We should have that up by Monday at the latest, possibly tomorrow. But yeah, I know we covered a lot of information, and there's a lot of people who want to go back and take notes and review certain segments, but we definitely will make this available as soon as we can. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Ken, Colette, Doc Steve. It's been a lot of fun, and we'll continue to try to bring you as much content like this possible going forward, and sharing with everybody in the Healy World community. So, thank you, everybody.
Much love,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone.